Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello dear friends, welcome back to NPTEL online course on logistics and supply chain management. So today we are into the third lecture and we'll continue with your this logistics concepts, and we'll see how these concepts can be implemented into manufacturing industry, and then we'll talk about the logistics concepts, the current industry scenario, international and Indian. So under this session, we will try to address these some of the concepts like manufacturing logistics. I will talk about the architecture, what are the elements in manufacturing logistics, and what are those factors which are affecting the development of logistics, and then we will talk about the current industrial scenario as far as the logistics industry is concerned. So as you can see, manufacturing logistics is basically overseeing the materials, resources and procedures integral to producing goods within a manufacturing settings, right. So it involves tasks such as procurement, inventory control, scheduling, production, managing transportation and distributing finished products. So why manufacturing logistics specifically? Just with a quick view on logistics, manufacturing logistics versus services logistics. See, services other than services are intangible in nature, and your manufacturing other physical products are tangible in nature. So when we talk about manufacturing logistics, this is something we are storing these products somewhere, maybe in the warehouses as inventory, right, in different settings, maybe warehouses or transportation center, distribution centers, we are storing these products. But the problem with the services industry is that we cannot store the services. So if let us say if one flight is flying from Calcutta to Delhi and 10 seats are vacant, so once it has take off, so we cannot utilize that unutilized those 10 seats later on, right. So that unutilized capacity will remain unutilized forever. But in case of manufacturing, what we can do is, when we do not have demand, we can produce the product, we can store it in our inventory, and whenever there will be maybe rise in the demand, we can leverage on that inventory, right. We can push the inventory in the. So this inventory management is important concept as far as manufacturing logistics is concerned, but in case of services, we do not have such inventory management. There what we are managing the queue. So you might have seen when you are visiting a bank or post office, there is one channel, huge queue is there, and if for maybe first hour very few people or there is no one, so no customer is standing in the queue. So during that time, the bank people cannot process anything, right, and whenever customer is coming and handing over the services. Same is the case if you are visiting the barber shop. If barber is he is not having any customer right now, so that is unutilized capacity, and we cannot even produce the semi-finished kind of services, right. So once your customer will enter, so because the customer is also the integral part of this manufacturing process when we are talking about services, but in case of products, customer is not part of manufacturing process, because customer is continuously providing the inputs, these kind of, because services is a kind of industry which are very customized, right. So depending upon the needs of the customer. So here we will talk only about the manufacturing logistics, how we are storing the goods, obviously then only we will talk about storage and warehousing. So the architecture of manufacturing logistics, these are some of the elements. First is your supply chain management. So supply chain management will ensure the raw material supply and other components, not only raw material, there can be, I talked about the sub assembly parts as well, if any sub assembly is there, that will be provided to the manufacturer. Let us say we have supplier 1 that is supplying some raw material to supplier 2. This raw material is being processed by supplier 2 and is finally reaching to us as manufacturing unit. Let us say we are the manufacturing unit, right. So, then again this is one component, maybe other components raw material also coming to our unit, right, and from so many different vendors. So, this from this manufacturing unit we will be converting all those components into finished goods, and these finished goods will be moved to the final customer. And in that supply chain, there may be so many different stakeholders. Let us say we may have distributors in between, we may have wholesalers in between, we may have carry and forward agents in between, we may have retailers as well. So, this is a long chain, right. So, this is a forward chain which is actually connecting the customer with the manufacturer. So, this is a supply chain. So, logistics component here is that it will ensure the smooth flow of this, sometimes maybe raw material, sometimes maybe sub assemblies, sometimes maybe the finished good through this supply chain, so that it reaches to the end customer. Inventory management, when we talk about inventory, so we are usually maintaining 3 different types of inventory. First is your raw material, second one is your semi finished goods, not finished completely, and on the production line maybe you have some semi finished goods, and then the finished ones, right. Obviously, we have some inventory in terms of if rejection is coming, some in terms of repairs are coming back. So, those things are also there, right. But usually intentionally we are maintaining the inventory raw material, semi finished and finished goods. And now when we are maintaining these inventories, 3 different types of, the first thing that comes in our mind is holding cost. So, if we are carrying all the time, let us say big store, departmental store carrying all the time 10 crore inventory, right. So, that is they are thinking, depending upon the market analysis, that this is the safe inventory, right. So, that much every day they need to store. So, 10 crore that much money will remain unutilized forever, because always we are maintaining that much inventory. So, that holding cost is always there, right. But we should not compromise this holding cost when we are saying that demand, we need to meet the demand as well, right. We cannot go below the safety stock, so that we are sometimes stock out, right. So, that should not happen. So, inventory management will ensure this. Production planning and scheduling. So, when we talk about operation management and the broader perspective, we discuss with 4 or 5 questions. What should be produced? Where should be produced? What quantity we should produce? When we should produce? And in what order we should produce? So, these are some of the basic questions we are answering when we are talking about production planning and scheduling. What we should produce, that will define your whether which type of product you are producing, or you are sometimes coming up with the services, right. So, that will answer your first question, where you will produce, whether you will produce in-house or you are going to outsource this. So, obviously, that again depends upon, we have different session on outsourcing versus in-house production. So, we will see what are those things when we are going for outsourcing. For here, quick point here is that when we do not have expertise and we do not have that much economies of scale, and we want to reduce the initial investment cost, right. So, then we are usually going for outsourcing, right. Otherwise, when we have enough demand in the market, we have the technology, we have the expertise, then we should produce it in-house. So, what quantity? That will again will predict the demand pattern. When we should produce, right? When? So, this will define the production scheduling, right? And sequencing in what order you are going to produce. So, let us say we have different models running on the same line, A, B, C. So, when we should produce A, how much of A should be produced? When we will start B? When we will start C, right? And maybe in one box you are packing 4 items of each. right. So, once you will not prepare 4 of these, the final one carton will not be ready, right. So, we have to produce in equal quantity, if that is the combination, or if that is the basket designed by your maybe marketing team or production is offering in the final market. The next point here is quality control. So, quickly, quality control, usually we have 3 different segments in quality control: incoming quality control, process quality control, and outgoing quality control. Incoming quality control addresses the issues with the raw material. So, incoming quality control is the department which will ensure that whatever is coming, even the final packaging, it is not that that packaging is not important, equally important, because it is carrying your logo, brand, image, and inside that beautiful product, right. So, that should be tough enough to bear all those wear and tear during the supply chain. Process quality control will ensure the quality of the product when the raw material is moving on the production line. Let us say we have down the production line, we have 500 different stages. So, process quality control will be observing all the stages obviously, and then will maybe identify out of those 500 stages, maybe 10 stages are very, very critical, where the chances of errors are very frequent. So, then this is the responsibility of the process quality control to define the parameters. Outgoing quality control, once your product is ready to be shipped, then it is the responsibility of the outgoing quality unit that you inspect that outgoing lot, and if it is okay as per your sampling plan, only then it will be distributed to the end market. Another important element when we talk about manufacturing logistics is material handling. So, whenever we are talking about material handling, the first very basic objective is it should be minimum, because when we are handling the material within in manufacturing unit, let us say in manufacturing unit also, I told you many different stages are there when we are converting the raw material into finished one. So, material is moving maybe from first to second stage, from second maybe it is moving to the next 5th or 6th stage, right, or maybe sometime we are temporarily storing in other storage house, right. So, whenever we are storing, whenever we are shifting that raw material sub assembly from one stage to other stage, this is material handling, but it should be minimum. We should design our production lines in such a way that material handling should be minimum, because during this we can damage the products, and if you are using some electronic components and using with the naked hands, you are not bearing those wristbands which are usually preferred for proper earthing system. So, then also you can damage the electronics. If you are handling the fragile items, so during material handling, if so many stages are there, even then you can break that. So, these are some of the points we need to take care when we are talking about material handling under logistics function. Then talking about transportation. So, transportation, connecting from the first supplier, then the layers of suppliers are there, in between manufacturer is there, to the end customer. The transportation will ensure the physical distribution of the product from one end to the other end. Warehousing, usually we are doing this before distributing the final product to the end customer. It is not only storage and handling. Sometimes we will see we are doing some value adding activities also in warehousing, right. So, that is also very important component. We will discuss when we discuss about this warehousing as a separate chapter. Then the next point is reverse logistics. So, I told about the reverse logistics can happen if the customer is not happy or simply wants to return the product, or some defective item is there, right, or even excess material, or it may be in terms of when the end of life of that product happens. So, again you need to recycle, reuse or remanufacture that product. So, in that way that closed loop supply chain should be there, and that is again very important part of your logistics. So, here I have included some video links. You guys can just quickly go through these videos and then we will continue our discussion on the topic. So, because after delivering that kind of product, we need installation of that product as well. So, you might have seen that how they are storing in between, and then they are storing pin code wise, and finally distribution happens as per the requirement of the customer, right. And this is just a quick review how the logistics flowing through your supply chain, right. When we are talking about either e-commerce websites, you are ordering the product, or you are ordering the product through your retail chain, right. So now we will talk about quickly the factors contributing towards the development of logistics. So globalization is one factor which is forcing our logistics system to evolve, right. If you want to compete in the market, so you have to be with world class facilities and with world class services, right. Having said that, world class facilities, right, so then this your transportation system, inventory system, distribution network should be very, very efficient, right. So efficient does not mean that whenever I am asking for the product, it is available and then you are maintaining huge inventory, no. So how you can maintain the minimum inventory while meeting all the customer needs, right. So then transportation also, we need to find out the best combination of intermodal modes, and then we need to talk about the fastest delivery as well with the minimum cost, right. So globalization, how it is impacting, because the players are coming from the international markets, not only Flipkart who is there in the Indian market. So when it is we talk about the e-commerce industries, so Amazon is another player which is emerging very fast, and because of their promises and how they are doing deliveries within 2 days, managing all the network. So obviously even if any local player is there, so they have to compete, right. So this is one factor which is contributing towards that. The other factor already I talked about, e-commerce growth, and it has reshaped the customer expectations. You can see in terms of delivery times, very short delivery times are required, adaptable fulfillment options. So adaptable fulfillment options in terms of when they want the product, where they want the product, what type of product they want, in terms of flavor, color, whatever, right. So these are different fulfillment options, and then we are talking about payment terms, then also different types of options are there. Either you are going for COD kind of option, or you are paying through your internet banking, you are paying through your credit card, debit card, any other option, any other digital wallet you are using, customer can use that. So you have to integrate your system in such a way, all the options should be open to the customer, and then this will happen only when there is integration throughout the supply chain. The next factor is supply chain collaboration. So collaboration with your suppliers, manufacturer, distributors, and logistic service provider. As I discussed that long chain, so that if there is collaboration, only then you can share the quick information, right, and then it will help you to streamline the operations. Let's say if through my distribution network I am getting some information about the demand, so this whatever information is, I need to send this information to the maybe the distributor will process it to maybe the wholesaler will process it to maybe the manufacturer will process it with maybe the supplier one will process it with supplier 2, and likewise this keeps on going, right. So if there is collaboration among the players, and quick information sharing means if there is a kind of digital information sharing, so then it will be quick and will help you in decision making. So advanced technology, when we talk about advanced technology, GPS, RFID, cloud computing, data analytics, these are some of the technologies which we are now frequently using talking about the logistics. See, this technology will help us in 2 ways. First, how it will help the services providers or the manufacturers, and then how these kind of technologies will be helpful for the final customer. For manufacturer, analyzing the demand patterns, they can only do when they are analyzing the buying pattern or behavior of the customer, when they are analyzing or they are getting the information from all the fragmented industry in the world or wherever they are operating, right. So because it's not very organized kind of store where you can collect information at one point of time. right. So, you might have seen if randomly you are checking maybe ticket price from Calcutta to Delhi, right. So, you checked it once just for information, maybe you are not in the mood, your tour is not even finalized, but still you checked. You will see in the very next moment that information related to the pricing for that particular tour will be reflected in your social media account. So, this is how information is being shared so quickly that you searched for some product, similar kind of products will be advertised to you, right. So, that you can make up your mind and can finalize the things on our platform, right. So, this will help only when I am closely observing my customer. So, then it will help us to provide the customized services, right. When talking about customer also wants quick information. So, like I talked about the information that what is the price of flight from Calcutta to Delhi. So, I have different platforms, I can check on Make My Trip, I can check GoAvivo, I can check the website of that local whatever player is, Indigo or Airlines, Indian Airlines or whatever it is, right. And then I have some other platforms like Ixigo, which is comparing all these platforms, right, and will give you the best option, whatever you can pick as per the price, as per the route, as per the time and services, right. So, customer is also in that way empowered because he is also getting the enough information. So, this is how the technology will help. Infrastructure development, now this is the promise, and now obviously already all the governments are working on that. They have to develop that infrastructure, only then the economy will be boosted up, right. So, we have those ports, airports, railways and highways. Obviously, some limitations are there, will be there throughout, but still the connectivity is growing better and better. So, that is also one kind of maybe factor and giving opportunities for improving the logistics performance. Emerging market. So, when you are planning to expand your market, right, the first thing is you should have the distribution network to distribute your product to that market, right. So, when I am saying new market, so you need to understand the dynamics of that market, right. Every market will not behave in the same way because there are some regional factors, cultural factors. The same advertisement will not work in India and same will not work in US, right. You cannot do in that way. And then the kind of product offerings are there, maybe the climatic conditions also sometimes playing role, or maybe the cultural values are also playing a role in that. And then local regulatory whatever your obligations are there, you need to complete those obligations as well, right. When you are going cross borders or even interstate you are going, so even then you might have seen the tax structure is there, different tax structure there. Even if you are operating in SEZ, special economic zones, or if you are working in outside of those zones, or you are transporting your goods from one state to other state within one country, even then those documentations and those custom clearance is required. The another factor which is contributing toward this is sustainability initiatives. So, green packaging and energy efficient transportation modes, right. So, like we talked about, if we talk about ships, if we talk about electronic vehicle. So, when we will talk about these kind of transportation mode, we can save energy as well, and then we can be efficient, right. When we are saving energy, we can be efficient, and then efficiency is also directly related to sustainability, and how we can use the renewable energy resources, that also we need to see. So, fuel, some alternative we can check for the what in traditional way petrol or diesel we are using, right. So, that is another thing we can. Customer expectation is something we can never delight our customer, right. We can never delight. If today I am giving 5%, next day my customer will be expecting 7%, next day he will be expecting 10%, right. So, in that way the expectations are increasing day by day, but then the minimum expectations are fast delivery, accurate tracking and hassle-free returns. If you are allowing the returns, so obviously I will place the orders, I will be more comfortable while visiting your website, because if anything goes wrong during the service channel or maybe with the product functioning or safety related parameters, I can return it on any day, right. Then regulatory changes are there, as we talked about when we are going overseas or when we are going from one state to other state, even then there will be regulatory changes, and sometimes we are bound to those environmental standards, like recently whenever there is hike in the pollution level in Delhi or NCR region, so they are banning the truck who are maybe 15 years old, right, or more than 15 years. So those trucks cannot enter the Delhi region. So because of the pollution and all that, they want to control, right? And then you might have heard about how the Supreme Court and government also, they banned BS4 engine, right? So these are some of the regulatory measures we need to keep in mind when we are going from one region to other region. So if we talk about this logistics industry, you can see what is happening globally. Here you can see, if I'll see, so 15 to 20% increase is there, and we are expecting of more than 14 trillion US dollar economy, just this logistics industry, which is contributing towards the world GDP, right? Talking about how different countries are performing, you can see Indonesia, the per kilometer cost is 24% logistics, they are contributing to the GDP, and the Republic of Korea is just 7.8. We are here somewhere in between. So in this way we can say that we need to improve our performance, because still logistic cost is higher than the BRICS nation, or we can say that the developed economies. All the developing economies, they are having lower logistics cost just because of the streamline operation is there. They need not to wait on the road for custom clearance. Their systems are automated. Here also one very recent movement is that FASTag. But if you go through, only I think 45 to 50% they are paying through using FASTag, right? So in that way it can ensure the continuous movement of the vehicles on the road, right? But yes, any technology, new technology is coming, so it will take at least a decade to commercialize it at fully, right? So if we'll talk about the industry size, so logistics industry was worth over 8.4 trillion euros in 2021, and it is worldwide, and now it is expected that it will exceed 13.7 trillion by 2027. So total logistics cost, if we'll see, is 10.7% of global GDP, right? And if we'll talk about regional insights, so Asia Pacific regions accounts for the largest share of logistics cost because of the population, and then we are doing so many deliveries, right? So that is one obviously big factor. And then if we'll talk about the third party logistics, United States hold that position. Third party logistics is another player which is doing all these kind of services, logistics, distribution, warehousing on behalf of the manufacturer or the seller, right? And there are some emerging markets. India is one of them, and because of this e-commerce industry, you can see the supply chain pressure index is increasing, obviously because of those demands increasing from the customer side. And then the trends are also changing, because now we are going for online shopping, where we are fixed with our mind. So if we'll talk about Indian logistics industry, so now if we talk about, India is second fastest growing nation after China, and if you talk about compound annual growth rate, it is 8.4% behind just China, right? Yes, obviously world economy was hit by this COVID-19 pandemic, and India is also affected by that, and we can see 23.9% down. But yes, we are recovering, and we are recovering in a faster way than expectations. So if we'll talk about Asian players, so we are faster, and if we'll talk about the global average, even then we are doing fairly well in that. So market size in 2022, the Indian logistics market was approximately $274 billion, right? And the projection indicate that by 2030, the market is expected to grow by 563 billion USD dollars, annual growth rate of 9.4%, which is huge, right? So but the major challenge is the logistics cost, where we are saying that we are contributing towards 14%, and if you talk about BRICS average, that is 11%. So we have to reduce this, we have to cut down this logistics cost. That's why there is so much pressure so much research is going on, how we can find out the optimal routes, how we can minimize the consumption of the resources so that we can be more efficient, and if we will reduce the time of delivery as well, even then we will be saving the fuel as well, right. So those all points are interlinked, we will work on one, obviously will reduce the total overall cost. So efficiency challenges, we are lagging behind the BRICS nation, and the basic thing here is because we are not perfectly using the intermodal mixture, right. I talked about the global average is that 60% your road transportation is contributing towards the total overall logistics cost. But if we talk about Indian scenario, so around 70 to 75% is going through road, right. So that is another very important point we need to take care. So let's talk about quickly the logistics sector in India. So logistics sector, now we understood till now that this is backbone of any industry, right. Whether you talk about your manufacturing industry or you talk about services industry, healthcare, and any type of industry, even healthcare you need equipment, right, you need medical supplies, right. So those medical supplies will be ensured timely only when you have that strong logistics infrastructure, right. And you can just imagine the emergency situations related to healthcare industry. So how efficient our supply chain or logistics should be there. So, and yeah, because this is interconnected kind of thing, right, between one player to supplier 1 to supplier 2, supplier 2 to manufacturer. So if supply is interrupted or delayed at one point, obviously it will be delayed at the next stage as well, right. So to reach at the final and on time, all these points should be perfectly connected, information should be perfectly shared, right. How much time is required from stage 1 to stage 2. So let's say if we are having 10 stages, all should be streamlined, right. So we should avoid that ripple effect. And if we will talk about logistics sector in India, these are some of the challenges which we are facing in India, right. So quickly we will go through one by one. First, talking about high order intensity ratio. So because of this is the first very big advantage that because of the huge population, we will also reduce, will get those many orders, right. So any day you will start, you will get those kind of minimum orders. This is kind of opportunity, but yes, this is kind of pain also for the logistics manager, because they need to organize the products in that way, because there may be some products which require some priority, there may be some products which you can delay a little bit, or whatever your promises are. If you are into pharmaceutical industry also, there are also some perishable medicines or vaccines you need to deliver on the same day, or you need to deliver, the urgency is like that, you need to deliver within 30 minutes, right. So then also you need to prioritize. So it takes time. Only manually if you will talk about, we cannot count on fingers which one is you need to prioritize and which one you can delay. So that also you need to set up the technology where we are still working on that, and we need to reach at that level where quickly we can share the information. Next important point here is the payment cycle. How quickly the payment will be done so that it reaches from the customer end to the first supplier. Because first supplier, when it is reaching to the customer end, he may be in a flow of supplying the second or third or fourth load, right. But he has not received the payment for the first one, so then it will be problem, right. So that also we need to ensure how quickly we can ensure the payment cycles. Second point is transportation roadblocks. So because I told you that 70% share is because we are going through road, so that much is contributed by road transportation, and road conditions, even today it is okay, maybe tomorrow there will be some accident, or maybe landslides, or maybe weather conditions. So then again these no one can predict, right. So when we cannot predict, so we cannot plan for that. So then how much inventory or stock you need to keep with you, because you are not sure when you will get the next lot, right. And then this is not the end. Even if you are going through road transportation, so many checkpoints are there, toll stations are there. So how we can streamline these toll stations with single payment or document, you can move across the borders, right. This how we can ensure. So only digitalization will help into that. So, that will help us to save the time. So, rail tariffs, obviously if we talk about the cost, road transportation, as I told you, this is 70% contributing towards the total intermodal share. If we will talk about 2.5 rupees per kilometer, but if we will talk about train, it is 1.5. If we talk about ship, it is only 0.25. So, this is the most efficient way of transporting your goods, but the problem is whether we have that infrastructure. Everywhere it is not available. So, how then we will deal with this, right? Then air transportation is, if we will talk about globally, it is less than 1% because it is very costly. But yes, then we are doing for emergency kind of things or high priority products, we are doing that, right? But then we need to find the perfect mixture of all this so that we can ensure the timely delivery with the minimum cost. Port and shipping problems. So, probably taking this kind of transportation of mode is taking the longest time, but yet it is sustainable, and the cost is one factor which is very important, and it will lower down the cost. But the problem is related with the infrastructure, right? So, because usually these are shipped through large vessels, and when you want to import to some part, maybe the depth is not that much which is required sometimes, right? And then you cannot ship through large vessels, right? This is another infrastructure limitation. So, even if you have port nearby, you cannot ship large vessel to that point. So, then you are shipping it to some maybe far away, and then again you are using the road transportation. So, that end-to-end connectivity is also problem as far as port shipment is concerned. Lack of skilled and specialist personnel. It is not like that it is just simple you are packing and loading. So, there are professionals for this, and this is very important because packaging is the first phase, right? Is the phase who is going to interact with the customer. So, we lack with the trained staff, and obviously training cost is there, and labor turnover is also there, right? So, there are lack of skills. Even we are not going for proper training programs, we do not have time because initial investment we think is very high. So, that somehow we want to cut down. So, there we are compromising, and then people are coming, people are leaving, and we are not getting the right talent for this. Slow transition into newer technology. If we talk about Japanese network structure, it is very fast, and how they are commuting from one point to the other point is marvelous, right? So, their strong network, distribution network provide them obviously the competitive edge, right? But why the other countries are failing? The slow adoption of the technology is maybe the another reason. And why slow adoption? Because the initial setup cost is very high. So, this initial investment is high, and then we are sometimes the fear that maybe we will not be able to recover this cost fully, or maybe other players are there who will be leading this industry, and we are in that dilemma whether we will recover the initial investment or not. So, let us continue with the whatever technology we have. Then when you are implementing the foreign technology or any new technology, you need to obviously import the expertise as well, right? Who will train your workforce. So, that is also time consuming and cost carrying activity. So, these are some of the reasons why we are slow in adoption the new technology. But yes, when you want to compete at the world level, you have to be updated with the technology. Warehousing and taxation discrepancies. Warehousing facilities, if we are having poor warehousing facilities, so many damages are happening, leakages are happening, and then sometimes if you are talking about the perishable items, so those cold storage are required, but then we are not having that much infrastructure. This is another point which we need to strengthen up, right? And then the different layers of text structure is also imposing so many hurdles in the smooth flow of that logistics. So, when we talk about a competition with global giants which are working on very short supply cycles, which are having that latest technology, then there is the challenge for the Indian logistics company. So probably that may be the reason Flipkart struggled to, but still Flipkart is carrying around 48 to 50% share, but yes, facing tough competition from foreign player Amazon. But now because Flipkart is also acquired by Walmart, they are claiming around 60 to 70% share in that. So maybe then Walmart is the world retail giant, right? So once Walmart is there, so then you can just expect that level of technology integration, that level of efficiency, inventory, the way they are handling. We'll discuss the full case on how Walmart is so cost efficient and delivery is perfectly done within the time, and still they are managing selling the t-shirt at $5, right? So how they are doing that? Then customer mindset, so many expectations, demands, the type of product they want, the level of quality they want, the level of services they want, the variety they want, and the time. So they also want a very minimum lead time, right? Short lead time. So how this is possible? This is another challenge for Indian market, right? So growing customer demands, how we can meet those growing customer demands. So still Amazon have internalized and streamlined their entire logistics process in order to meet the expectations of the customer. This is another very big challenge, fuel economics. If you try to understand, the base price is somewhere around 30 rupees, and then layer over layer the taxes are added, and then the cost is somewhere around 87 rupees. So this is not the latest one. Now we are reaching around somewhere around 100 rupees. So I mean, this cost is something beyond our control. So they are obviously pushing down our margins, the profit levels. So this is one point how we can fight with. We need to find out the alternative ways, how we can make the last mile delivery using electronic vehicles or cycles or electronic cycles as well, right? And then you will be able to add into sustainability as well, because you are reducing the carbon footprint as well, and then you are cost efficient as well. So, and then proper mixture of all different types of modes of transportation will help into reducing the price of this transportation. So government policies and bottlenecks, although the government is streamlining the process, FASTag, one document, right? So that kind of red carpet treatment is now done with all the players, so that they should invest in India, and we can even export to other countries as well, right? So that is kind of movement is going on. Still we are trying to come up with the best infrastructure where we can provide those services, right? And shortage of drivers and delivery staff, this is another problem with Indian logistics industry, where we don't have the trained staff, and because the motivation and the compensation maybe sometimes they are getting is not enough to motivate them to keep them in that industry, so they are also leaving. So how we can empower those players, because very important players. So if we'll empower those drivers, maybe in terms of the same driver is working as the delivery staff also, or maybe some other value adding activities they can contribute. So in terms of they will also find themselves connected with the distribution network, part of means they will feel as one of the stakeholder, and maybe then we can retain them for longer period of time. So here we can conclude that manufacturing logistics, usually now we are dealing with the products, how we can ship that product. So usually we'll talk about the inventory cost, how we can control that, and in what order and quantity we need to produce, right, those products, and then managing the distribution and transportation. So storage is another point which is important in manufacturing logistics, but we will talk about the services industry, there we will talk about the queue management, right? There is no such concept of inventory management. And the major forces, as we talked about, the globalization is one big factor, the e-commerce, the way the e-commerce industries are coming up with the new innovations, right? 30 minutes delivery concept and promises. So it is a very big force. If you want to survive, you have to come up with the technological investment, you have to come up with the more infrastructure, and also the sustainability initiatives also, because now as a customer are preferring the products which are sustainable. If it is written on the packaging like Mantra is doing, So they are writing on their packet that it is 100% recyclable, and that packaging is made up of paper, right? So some customers are more conscious about that, and they want their products should have minimum carbon footprint. So these are the text and reference books. Thank you so much.